Hi, my name is Dan Zeilinger, and I have been a world-traveling full-time trad jazz musician for the past 40 years. Some of my most memorable performances were on the lawn of the Edinburgh Castle, at Imperial Palace in Japan, as well as TV shows and commercials across the world. I've met many people during my career and have spent many hours on stage and off with these musicians, talking about jazz, life, and more. Some are touring musicians, some are theme park warriors, and some are casual musicians who play on the weekends with friends. I think they all have stories worthy of a movie script, and through these interviews, I'll be sharing them with you. Hi there, this is Dan Zeilinger with Trad Jazz Today. My next guest is somebody who I've admired and seen play for a very long time. We used to run into each other at festival circuits, and we actually have a few players in common that we've played with over the years. But excellent tuba player, a good friend and band leader, Mr. Kit Johnson.
Thank you, Dan. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm honored that you invited me on the show.
Oh, well, I'll fix that. Now, it's, I research everybody that I've been interviewing, and that makes some people's knees shake and others not. But you were actually born in Myrtle Creek.
I was born in Roseburg, but my folks lived in Myrtle Creek at the time, and Roseburg was the closest town that had any sort of hospital, so that's where they took me.
I see. Well, we need to fix your biography, because first thing off, I'm wrong. But that's good. I know where Roseburg is. I played there for a week one day. No, I'm just kidding.
That would be about right. Well, Roseburg's only about 17 miles from Myrtle Creek, so that's close enough for jazz.
Yeah, it's good. Well, you know, a lot of the jazz players I've ended up playing with come from Oregon. It's, you know, John Brand and Mark Curry and Rusty Stiers and the Jazz Minor crew and all those guys.
Yeah, they certainly started much earlier than I did with this style of music. But yeah, some fabulous players from up here, and of course, you know, Rusty's parents were up here, and they guys like Bert Barr and Tom Jacobus were in the area, and then a whole, you know, just a stellar group of musicians up in the Portland area as well. And so it has a pretty good heritage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And let's see, where are you? Now, I'm going to have a lot of fun with all of these names that are associated with you and where you've lived. Tua Latin is where you are now.
Yeah, it's an Indian word, I'm sure, up here, and I think it's generally pronounced Tualatin.
Well, see, there you go. It's like everybody. it's like when you have New Yorkers come out to California and try to say La Jolla. You know, it's one of those things.
Exactly. Yeah.
And now I have to tell you, I have been to Snoqualmie Falls, so I do know how to say those kind of Indian words. But
yeah, no, that's good. That's a beautiful place up there. Washington, not Oregon, though.
No, I understand that. It's all the same to me. I'm kidding.
Anything north of California.
Absolutely. In fact, if it's past Sacramento, then it's in another country. And so you went to Myrtle Creek Elementary.
I did. Yeah. I did Myrtle Creek Elementary, Myrtle Creek Junior High, and then there was a shared high school between three communities actually, little towns of Myrtle Creek and Tri-Cities and Canyonville. Many of your listeners and you yourself probably recall driving past Canyonville. Has the big casino in it now, and that's sort of, you know, what gives Canyonville its sort of noteworthiness. Though back in the day, it was certainly other things. But those three communities together formed the South Umpqua High School District, and that's where I went to high school.
Yeah. How were your parents musical?
Not really. You know, my mom loved to sing, and sort of her family was into you know, sort of folk styles and, you know, a little bit of, you know, country types of things, sort of back in the Jimmy Rogers type of days and things like that. So mom actually had a good ear, and so she would, you know, pick out songs and chord on the guitar and sing a little bit, but no trained musicians really in my family.
Okay, no, that's quite all right. Other than the fact that my father played sousaphone at the University of Nebraska, there was no jazz influence whatsoever with me growing up. But
So you're a Cornhusker at heart?
I am. I was actually born in Omaha,
Oh, we darn. Yeah.
and my family farm was in David City, uh, and I know I don't look at that's because my mother was Filipino. It's not my fault, but it explains Zeilinger, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So you actually, is it true that you started out in trumpet in fifth grade?
I did. Yeah. The normal band program in our district started in fifth grade, and uh, my at home, my mom had actually always loved French horn, and we actually had some Dennis Brain recordings around the house, and it's just some beautiful French horn work, and so I think she was hoping that I would pick up the French horn, but got into the band room, and it seemed like cornet at the time was all the rage, and so that's what I went for, and played cornet for a while. I actually played it on up just a little past high school, but for the first couple of years it was solely cornet.
Yeah, well, when we were coming up in junior and high school, Tijuana brass was the thing, and I started out on trumpet as well. I didn't know if you know that.
I do, yeah.
Which is very strange, actually. My father played sousaphone, so he was happy when I made the switch. But what can I say? I guess the German in me leads that way. In fact, Dan Marcus, you know Dan.
Sure.
Dan Marcus claims that all of us came from the same boat when it landed in Plymouth Rock. That somehow or another we're all descended to the same German immigrants that.
Yeah. We came out of the Bavarian Alps and marched ourselves down to the boat and got on and came over to the States and
that's it.
Picked up the tuba.
Which of course leads it to the fact that you were actually in the U.S. Army Band in Germany.
I was, yeah. After high school, I worked for a year, and then I went to University of Oregon for a couple of years, and at the time was working full time and going to school and completely broke, and decided this isn't going to pan out, and so went into the Army Band program for a stint, and actually was quite fortunate in having 2.5 years at one of the better bands in Europe at the time. The Heidelberg band was the top band over there, and then our band in Kaiserslautern was sort of right behind them, and just a great bunch of musicians. We were a very public relations oriented band, so most of what we did was not directly Army events. It was more public relations to go out through Europe and play concerts for the natives over there, which meant that from March through November we were playing one or two or three beer and wine festivals a day, and being highly pampered. And
I'm sure that was awful. Actually, getting paid to play other than having to go through boot camp, it sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, as duty goes, it wasn't bad. We probably put in more hours and certainly more miles than just about anybody else in the Army, but it wasn't bad duty, and mostly the Germans over there couldn't get enough schnitzel and wine in you when you go to one of these events, so it was all right. I definitely picked up a few pounds along the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wonder if you still eat sausage.
Well, I do, but not as vigorously.
It's crazy over there. There's not a place to be a vegetarian.
Oh, that's true. That's true, though. They have some wonderful salads and things. They do a lot of pickling and things like that with their greens over there. Yeah. That is just terrific.
Yeah. So, how fluent did you get in German while you were there?
Yeah, funny. We picked up enough to generally order off the menu and seek directions and
get in
find
trouble
out where the bathroom was and that sort of thing, and that was about it. And when I came, the funny thing was when I came back to finish up college, I actually took 2 years of German after I was over there, and then of course never, I've made one trip back, but have generally not been back or had a chance to use it, so promptly forgot all of it after college anyway.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's funny that you took the class after you got back.
Yeah, that's sort of the story of my life,
Dan. Give me a beer, please, and do you have a sister? I understand. Those are the phrases that you learn when you're doing that type of thing.
Exactly, yeah.
you know. So U of O, huh?
Yeah. I was at University of Oregon. I actually spent 5 years there. My first couple of years just solely as a music major, and then uh, when I came back out of the service, I doubled up and got an accounting and music degree at U of O there. So, and it was fun playing, quasi professionally in the service and doing that. But frankly, I didn't see myself sort of making a living as a musician and as a tuba player in the long run, and just had never been excited about the prospect of teaching myself. And my mom was a teacher, so I came out of that
Yeah.
that realm, but wasn't looking to be a teacher. And so I started thinking about things to double up on. It came down to engineering and accounting, and the pragmatist in me said I can get the accounting degree done in one fewer years. I'm going that direction.
Yeah, I guess you told me you were so excited to see that Dan Cummins was an accountant as well.
Yeah. I didn't realize that about Dan. I didn't realize that he was an accountant. So that was it was a funny bit of kismet when I heard the program.
Now, did you, in the Army band, was it strictly a concert band setting, or did you get to do any breakdown groups?
So we had a full concert band, and so you did a lot of symphonic band, concert band type of literature. Lots of overtures and the usual concert music and that sort of thing. And then we had we had a full 18-piece stage band, which I generally did not play in within that group as well. And then we also had a 5-piece combo that was more of a jazz, straight into a little bit of pop, but more of a jazz combo. And you being around the military, you end up with lots of officer functions and things like that, and they want a little bit of music, which typically means they want 5 or 6 people to stand up on stage and look really professional and hold their instruments, but they don't want to be heard.
Much like theme parks, yes.
So I did that. And I played bass in the combo for several years.
Okay.
Well.
I don't know if I realized that you played bass, string bass, right? Or electric bass.
Yeah, I still own basses. I wouldn't say that I play them, Dan, but I still own them.
That's funny. Do you play trombone also?
Just a smidgen. When I was in high school jazz bands, I played trumpet for the first year in my freshman year in stage band, and then my trumpet chops, as I was focusing more and more on tuba, were not standing up very well, and so I switched over and I played valve trombone. We were short of trombones in the stage band. I played valve trombone for a couple of years, and then I played a little bit of bass trombone with that as well. So just enough to sort of figure out the slides, but I'm not proficient on it.
When did you start improvising?
Yeah, when I was playing valve trombone, we were doing some things in the Ferguson, literature, and so it was in that day, as I think I've heard you speak of before. It was sort of Buddy Rich and Stan Kenton and Maynard Ferguson, and sort of the legacy big bands that were still out there, and we had some pretty good players, and so we were doing some tough charts, and we did a few Ferguson charts that had Maynard playing Superbone.
Yeah.
And so I started trying to pick off the solos on the valve, and we did some of that literature, and so that's certainly not improv, but it did force you to sort of listen to what they were doing and try to figure it out, and that's probably my first foray into any kind of improvised jazz.
Well, being a musician going through the university system, I'm sure you had to have your share of theory and such.
Sure enough. Yep. And your training and theory, and I've always been fairly good at sort of the left brain, sort of analytical side of that. Probably less good, frankly, at the right brain, just hearing things really well. But
being an accountant, I can imagine. Yeah. Like I was saying to Dan, numbers have always befuddled me, and so I actually those of you who can intellectualize that while you play, I find astounding. It's such a visceral falling off a cliff thing for me. that I'm not really thinking about 251 changes. I mean, I teach now, so I've had to learn how to teach for the normal person, but that's not how I came up with it.
Yeah, it's you got to be careful what you wish for. There's definitely wonderful things about being somewhat adept at reading and understanding sort of the theory and from an analytical standpoint. But I think mostly for jazz, it gets in the way. It's like I admire you guys that really do it more by ear.
Oh, it's funny when I was with 10th Avenue, which is I think, and that and the Hot Frogs and Misbehave, those bands. But when I was with 10th Avenue, I started writing some arrangements for those guys, and it really pissed off Joe Ashworth when he was playing reeds for them. He said, Dan, I only read enough so it doesn't screw up my jazz.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
For a lot of the guys, that's kind of their attitude, So
though Ed liked charts, I think. Though
Ed was actually brilliant. He wrote most of the charts. He was really an interesting person to get to know.
Yeah, no, he was, quite a successful businessman, and
another Oregonian too.
Another Oregonian, yeah. He came up with Monty's crew, and Ernie Carson and Jim Goodwood and those guys up here. So,
yeah, he took a lot of heat for trying to widen his audience, and I understand what he was trying to do, but alas, what happens is you gain one audience and lose another.
Yeah, no, that's right, and we did a couple of joint gigs with Ed when he was trying to do some things up here, do little festivals or little day gigs, and he put his money where his mouth is, and he really tried to to make it happen and to keep some of these things alive, and it's just difficult to do. And like you say, there's no easy answers to what is going to appeal to a broad number of people and is going to be economically viable in the music world. So you admire those that at least try.
Absolutely, and you're right about him putting his money where his mouth is. He did so much for the promotion of jazz, especially on the West Coast. He was fronting probably at one time 8 or 9 festivals.
Yeah, I recall. Yeah, no, I remember he was doing some in the valley down in California. I think he was doing, he was trying to do something out here in Tri-Cities when, the original Tri-Cities ones in Eastern Washington folded. He was trying to do some stuff here in Oregon. I think he was trying to help out Bob Pettengill, with some things, and, so sorry to see him go.
Good for him. I understand that. So Black Swan, was that your first foray into being a band leader?
Yeah, pretty much. I had done a little bit of sort of traditional jazz, New Orleans jazz, playing with combo in college, and had left. And when I came back, several of the same people had formed a group and were playing, a few casuals together, and in and around the Eugene area. They were all still at the University of Oregon, and very fine tuba player, John Ingman, who was playing with them, was also sort of working and couldn't make some gigs, and so I started to step in with them, and that group sort of became a group called the Misty Water Drifters, which was primarily a U of O, oriented group, and we were together probably from 86 to 89, and then, just sort of had musical differences, and, mostly parted, and some of the band members came into Black Swan Classic Jazz Band, which we started in 89. So, and then I had played just a little bit of the style. We would occasionally throw in a New Orleans jazz tune with the Army Band, and so we'd assemble a bunch. We didn't practice very much, and it sounded like it. And the funny thing is we actually had the tuba player that was playing with that, so I tried to pick up enough banjo so that I could chord along on the banjo on different songs.
Good for you.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Now I remember the very first time you and I spoke.
So I think I remember the first time you and I spoke,
let's
and
hear your story.
I was in desperate situation, as I recall.
Relay your story, and I'll tell you what my memory was.
All right, all right, all right. So my story is as I recall, you did me a wonderful kindness at the Pismo Beach Festival, and uh, and what had happened, and we only, Black Swans only played that festival a couple of times. It was a wonderful festival. It was a real treat. But the first time we were to go down there, we were of course flying from Portland to Pismo Beach by way of Los Angeles. And I and my clothes made it all the way to Pismo Beach, but my tuba made it to Los Angeles, and that was it. And then they decided it was too big to get on the little plane that was going to San Luis Obispo there or
Right.
something like that. And so we got a set coming up, and I don't have a tuba, and so I'm casting around and trying to figure something out. And then I think you were kind enough to lend me your B flat and to play for Friday night.
Did you say an E flat?
No, B flat,
Okay.
B flat.
Yeah, because I
And
never owned an E flat to bring to festivals.
and so you really bailed me out. And the only challenge was that I had converted several years before, pretty much exclusively to C. So I had to do a lot of thinking that night, a lot of, figuring out old B flat fingerings and things, but it really helped us out.
Now, I'm not honestly, I don't recall that.
I'm pretty sure it was you.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's all possible. My recollection was I think we were at the Columbia River. What was it? The Hilton Hotel. There was a festival up there somewhere, perhaps, and I was on stage with probably 10th Avenue. Yeah, pretty sure it was 10th Avenue, and you were in the audience, and that of course always makes me nervous when there are tuba players watching. And I came off the set, and you walked up and said, "Dan, I'm really impressed with your embouchure. You don't do any shifting."
I do remember that, actually, now that you bring that up. Yeah.
I was flattered, obviously, but I didn't realize what the big deal was either.
Yeah, it's I just thought, it's one of those things you sort of, you note when you're observing other players and things like that. And I sort of notice a little bit on tuba players and trombone players, the sort of, what's going on in the embouchure and that sort of thing. I just thought, here's a guy who plays up and down the register of the horn. And what's interesting to me about your playing, of course, I haven't heard you in a while, but your playing at that time was that it didn't matter whether you were playing sort of up in the higher part of the bass clef register or down low. The tone, each tone sort of had a very similar quality to me. And then the other thing was, it was just very simple, and it wasn't a lot of movement here. And most of that movement gets in the way. I'm guilty of it a lot, and I'm always fighting it. And so, somebody that's just locked in like that, that's an admirable thing. That's a tuba geek thing to notice, but
I agree. I was shocked at it, and I was told at one point in time to keep everything inside the mouthpiece. And I don't even remember who told me, but thank you for noticing. I was very, very flattered that you would come up and make that comment.
I didn't ask for money right after that, did I?
That was my first recollection. No, but I instantly tried to catch your next set so I could say something intelligent about yours playing.
Yeah.
But
he said, "Well, that guy's face is moving all over the place on the mouthpiece. Look at those cheeks puffing out."
I didn't say anything. I didn't, and I don't remember. Well, maybe. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I mean, so that's a great band, and it's, you guys have always been, as you know, I end up in bands that I wouldn't really characterize as being dyed-in-the-wool trad bands. I don't know why that is, but I tend to be on indifferent. Misbehaving was pretty close. That band was pretty close to being a straight-ahead trad band, but the Hot Frogs was a show band, and I was with them for a while. And then 10th Avenue was whatever Ed felt like being. We did everything from, Live and Let Die to San Francisco Bay Blues with that group.
Well, but yeah, for what it's worth, I think Mark Curry first turned me on to you guys in Misbehaving, and I just fell in love with that group. It was just wonderful. It was I'd known who Brad was for a long time, but it was my first exposure, probably one of my early exposures to you and to Westy and to Brian Shaw. who
Oh God, yes.
I have been so privileged to get to work behind occasionally with High Sierra, and it's just he's an amazing musician. So I love that band. I think it's very much a trad band, and just tasty and light, and not
Speaking of
overbearing.
guys that came out of the band, of course, Evan Christopher is a huge star now,
Yeah.
and he won't even admit that he was in our band. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a lot of fun. I was talking to, who was I talking? I was talking to one of my interviews about the fact that I started uh, with Howard Alden as a banjo player when I did the Southern Comfort Band, and then I went to Brad Roth, and I had no idea that banjo players weren't all that good.
Yeah. 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 But I have that album, by the way. I think I have that Southern Comfort album, which is a wonderful album as well.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's great.
Because the instrumentation is wild in it. We had three
well,
reeds.
not that wild. I mean, you just have an extra reed or so, right?
Yeah, we had 3 reeds, guitar and banjo, because Denny Hardwick and Howard both played on it.
Yeah.
And a church bell.
And the church bell. I don't remember the church bell.
Yeah, it's at the very last cut that when we do the Southern Comfort theme.
I know what you're talking about now. Yep.
And it was a boat bell on the recording, but that's because we actually recorded that in Brian Shaw's church, like from midnight to 4 a.m. when everybody got off work at Disneyland. And there happened to be a church bell on the stage. So they used it. What can I say?
So in the spirit of Ward Kimball, you have your own take on it.
Absolutely. But can you believe that I actually was weaned into this style with those guys? For me, it's hard to wrap my head around with Dan Barrett and Brian Shaw and Howard Alden. No names there,
Yeah.
My God.
No.
It now boggles my mind that they put up with me. Because I was a high note Latin band, big band lead trumpet player when that came around. So
yeah,
anyway.
that's a different set of muscles, Dan, going from high note trumpet to tuba.
I tell everybody my poor wife married a high note Latin trumpet player and ended up with an old fat tuba player. So
yeah, that's the story of the world, isn't it?
So what other bands have you been playing with lately? Or not lately, but within the last 10 years.
Most of aside from work, I've get a certain amount of time for music, and occasionally I'm lucky enough to sort of get a call from somebody, and so get the occasional subbing job. I mentioned High Sierra, worked on occasion with Buck Creek when they were active, and the Uptown Lowdown guys, just when someone couldn't make it or Bert had something going on down here in Portland, and so just the occasional sub things. I haven't been doing a lot outside of Black Swan though for a while.
I was surprised to find out that you did the majority, if not, well, you say you did about half the arrangements for Black Swan, but that's a lot of arranging,
Yeah, it's it's sort of taken place over a long period of time, and so it evens out. I go through spells where I will suddenly get an urge to add some new literature to the book, and so do some arranging, or I hear something and I think, that would be great for Maryland, or I could really have Rick shine on this or something, and we'll do some arrangements, and then I may go through a long spell without doing anything. So the band's been together 30 years now, 30 plus years, I guess, and so over time that's not all that many. It started off arrangements were a lot looser, and then I really got you're down in LA, and there's a lot of musicians down there that know the style, and really are great musicians and can sort of step right in. There's fewer up here. I mean, it's a good concentration of jazz up here, but there's fewer musicians who can just step into something and pick off a chart, or just hear a piece and know exactly what's going on. And so I actually started arranging more and more to try to give substitutes a fighting chance, and that was appreciated by substitutes, but over time it sort of got us into a mode where you're sort of doing more and more complex arrangements, and you get more locked into the music as opposed to just playing loose.
I really respect that. I've played a lot of bands where they'll have arrangements that they never update.
Yeah.
That I go and play a band and they put a chart in front of me and I'll play it exactly as it's written and they'll say, oh, well, we don't do that anymore. And instead of there, we go to the bridge, and instead of this, and I'm a sub on the band.
Yeah.
You know, and so I appreciate somebody who looks after those who aren't regulars, you know.
It's, you know, it is a difficult situation, you know, to walk into, even if you're the best of players, I think. And you know, to just, you know, go in and try to cop what the band is all about and sort of figure them out, and, you know, what they like and what they don't like and what helps them sound good. And then, you know, to know all the tunes, or sort of be trying to constantly over a long period of time, listen so hard so you can pick out chords and what's going on. That's a very, very sort of strenuous, you know, environment. And there are certainly some musicians who are just absolutely great and just knock it out of the park, and, you know, do this so much that they can pretty much walk into any situation. But the average guy, that's difficult to do. And so you try to get as much help as you can.
I was going to say, I noticed Mark Curry's no longer playing with you.
You know, Mark has been down in California for quite some time now. And, you know, he played with our band for the first 3 years, I guess. So really between 89 and about 92.
Where's he living now?
I think he's in a Tuscadero.
Okay. I'm saying he's not down here because I would have used him.
Yeah, no, he's a little north of you, but yeah, he's in the San Francisco Bay Area there. But Mark at around 92 was work. He had gotten a job with Merck, and he was really, you know, going at it, and it's taking a lot of time. He was on the road a lot, and had a young family and that sort of thing. So he really needed to step back. And you know, he's such a great friend. He and I met when I returned to college, and he had left the park and come back north and gone back to University of Oregon as well. And so we were of a similar age as college guys, and ran into each other and got to know each other. And he's just been a wonderful friend over the years. And so I'm always trying to encourage him to do some playing. And I think he is, you know, before, you know, the last few months, he was getting out, playing a little bit with the big band, and doing some occasional, you know, sitting in with some combos and things like that. Yeah. So I'm hopeful that he'll continue to do that and pick up more and more as he approaches retirement.
Well, as you know, Mark did the Southern Comfort fiasco thing, that the gang band, and it was really a delight to get to know him. He's so funny. We were on an airplane once, and he got on the flight, and he was wearing a blue blazer and gray slacks. Everybody thought he was the pilot. He was walking up and down on the aisles, and it was just hilarious.
Well, and, you know, it's as young guys, you know, he and Rusty and Brad and John Brand, you mentioned that, you know, all those guys, you know, they really put a lot of energy into that band, and I think they had some good coaches, you know, from the adult musicians around, and so they worked really hard. And then when they went down to the park, and they're down there and they're around wonderful musicians, you know, who sort of take them under their wing, and you blow 6-8 hours a day on the horn, you are going to get good. And you know, Mark's one of those guys where I just think, hey, you know, he picks up the horn and he just swings. You know, it just flows.
Right now, I'm trying to talk Rusty into doing this show. And I guess he stopped playing, basically.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. You know, that's another one. I mean, I'm sure he's busy at the park as well with his, you know, his responsibilities there. But you know, I think he's another one where he's such a versatile musician, and he can play, you know, virtually anything. But his feel for, you know, trad and leading a band is wonderful. And you know, I've only had one time I've had the opportunity to play with Rusty. He was nice enough to come in when we were missing a trumpet player for a little festival up in Washington many years ago, and he just came in and he looked at what we had going, and he just knocked it down cold. He was amazing.
He's a phenomenal talent, and I think a little bit underrated, actually.
Yeah, I think that's partially just because he's not, you know, he's not out there that much. You know, I think if people had more of a chance to, you know, to see him play, they'd know what was there. I think the first time, so this brings me back, I didn't know him at the time, but since in high school, I was a decent tuba player, and so my sophomore through senior years, I had the chance to participate in the state solo contest up here. And I think Rusty was a year ahead of me, and he was a trumpet player. And so I still sort of thought of myself as a trumpet player at that time. And so I would go listen to the trumpet players play. And I think I heard him, I think it was in 77, and I think he played, Carnival of Venice or something as a high school kid, and just blew me away and blew the judges away too. Just amazing musicianship and technique for someone that young.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he was pretty phenomenal. We did some pretty hard time together, both at Knott's Berry Farm, and he actually came on the Hungary tour with 10th Avenue when we went over and toured Hungary.
I knew you were over there. I didn't realize Rusty had gone with you. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It was a hoot. It was a real hoot. But yeah, he and I put in some not as much time as he did with the minors guys, but he and I put an awful lot of time in casuals and different things around Southern California.
You bet.
You
bet.
And a great friend, and so knowledgeable. If you saw that interview I did with Matt Perrine.
I did. Yeah.
And he credits Rusty. So well.
Yeah. Well, he did it as the professors and sort of helping encourage him, and it's also nice to see Matt just do so well as finding the balance of supporting himself as a professional musician. I mean, that's not for the faint of heart.
Especially not in New Orleans.
Yeah, exactly. And, he's working hard. Heard him a little bit with the trombone group and, with the, various ensembles back there. And it sounds like he's really keeping busy. So that's encouraging to hear.
Of course, he was playing tuba on the last two videos that Evan Christopher dropped that they were busking or playing out in the public for. So it's kind of funny.
I don't think I've seen those. I'll have to look them up now.
Yeah, it's probably you'll probably have to look it up at Evan's site. Yeah. Because it was like a quartet, and I had interviewed Matt, and the next day I was on YouTube looking around, and there he is playing with Evan, which really cracked me up because I've been trying to get Evan on the channel, like I said, and so I actually live commented. I'm saying, hey, nice to see you, Matt. Tell Evan he needs to get on my program. But
did I see that Evan did some collaboration with Bria or something not too long ago? I thought I saw something out there.
Probably he also did some lectures, I think, for the Lincoln Center.
Oh, serious? Yeah.
He's been furthering his reputation as a historian and Albert system player.
Yeah.
Which is great. Little does anybody know that he's just a kid from Garden Grove who learned by Larry Wright, But
yeah, he must have been about 16 or so when he was playing with Misbehavin', right? He couldn't have been very old.
Yeah, he was. He was really young. First time I met him, he was playing with Larry Wright with Larry Wright's Whiz Band. So yeah, he was young, and he looked like Aladdin from the Disney movie at the time. But wow, the people we've met in our business, it's just nuts. And it's such a small community in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it is interesting when you focus in on, sort of this narrow niche of music that we play. It's unfortunately, it doesn't have real broad popularity, but over the years, there's been a lot of love and passion around, sort of keeping it together, and those who like to listen to it and those who like to dance with it and stuff like that. And it's an amazing group. And, I appreciate I think as I told you before we started on air, I've appreciated listening, sort of as I'm working during the day, listening to some of the interviews you've done, because some of these guys I've known, just a bit, or you run into them in the break room, or you have a chance to hear them, at a festival or time or two, but didn't know them well, and just amazing lives and amazing minds, of the folks that sort of find interest in playing this music.
I know, and you find all those common ties between everybody, which is high tech and the amount of absolute geniuses there are. Not me, not at all, but you accountants and number people and classic train buffs and Les Deutsch, my gosh, talking about a genius. The guy's a rocket scientist, for Pete's sake.
It sounds like he had to be growing up in the family that he did with his father and his uncle and stuff like that. You know, just
Exactly.
amazing stories.
I also have an interview coming up with Gary Kaiser.
Oh, Gary, is he doing? Is he calling in from Paris, or is?
Oh, well, I've actually done it already, and yeah, we spoke from Paris, and he told me about for a while he was actually busking as a solo tuba player around Germany and France, and made enough as just standing on the corner and playing his horn to feed himself and rent places. Which, man, to talk about being brave. Yeah.
Yeah, I would try that, but I think the money I would make is to get me out of there. Here's some money. Why don't you go down to the next corner? Gary's a great player. He's a wonderful player. I communicated back and forth on Facebook with Gary over the years, and had a chance to meet him up in the Kalispell Festival. At one point, they had brought the group from France over, and because they were going to be over there, and our band was playing for the opening ceremonies, Carla made us do an arrangement of La Marseillaise,
Okay. Sure.
the French national anthem, and so we're at the last minute. We're trying to figure out a chart that will work for Dixieland Band for it, and so we came up with something, and we romped through it, and played some really loud tuba lines underneath it, and so Gary came up and was very appreciative and very kind. So it was a nice chance to meet him. But
I never would have met him if it wasn't the fact that it was through his mom. As a lot of us know Beverly, of course, through her gift booth and
because he grew up down in your area, right?
Right, Sacramento area.
Oh, he's from Sacramento. Okay.
Yeah. But his mom was the person who she had a concession stand at all the festivals. Selling umbrellas and badges and things.
Yeah. All right. So then I probably know her and never made quite the connection there. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. She has a really charming and actually beautiful redhead that was at all the festivals, over there by where the record sellers were and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
And I was talking to her one day. She goes, "Oh, I want you to meet my son," So.
Oh, be darned. I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. What can I say? So this has really been fun, Kit. I'm so glad you agreed to do this.
Well, it really is a pleasure, and it feels like old home week. Talking through some of these players and some of the events that we've been fortunate enough to play over the years. Frankly, Dan, it's it's not everybody that gets that chance.
And as since you're now telling me that you've seen most of these interviews, there are a few things I say all the time, but one of them is what I miss is this. What I miss is speaking with friends and having the energy and the feedback from the musicians' lounges and sitting across a beer and it's the friendships. It's that synergy that happens on stage among musicians that you can't do it with a digital concert. You can't. What we really get addicted to is not only the feedback from the audience, but the feedback from each other.
Yeah, there's no question. And I think, I think when you're at festivals and there are other musicians that you respect or, admire, that we're out there, it makes you want to step it up just that extra notch and do the best that you can. And it also, makes you appreciate the opportunity to sit in front of one of the bands from Chicago or something like that are doing these old great dance charts and just listen to the intricacy that they're doing and, have those moments. But you're right on the digital thing, it is extremely difficult. And not just because you don't have the personal connection and the inspiration that comes from that, sort of responding off the other player and taking it to a new level. But just because of the challenges that are inherent in trying to do any of that, it's a lot of work. Even using the little apps like Acapella today and that sort of thing, it's a lot of work to try to pass on a file to somebody else and have them try to play something inspirational in time to that file and have it sort of fit and pass it to the next guy, and it's just not what.
Well, just by the nature of it, it has to become a lot more mechanical than it would have, and less organic.
Yeah, but and disciplined in many cases. you get away with a lot on stage, you know, I think with energy in the room and the visual aspect, people see you up there and all that kind of stuff. And then you feel that. And so you sort of get away with a lot. When you're just sitting in front of a camera and just playing, it's hard, you know, you don't get away with much at all. And so
you'll find as these interviews go on, hopefully that you'll keep watching. I've got an inordinate amount of tuba players on it, which I find kind of amusing, since we always fight each other for work and we very seldom get to be on the same band. But somehow or another, I've managed to make pretty good friendships with a lot of tuba players.
You know, Dan, this just says that your show is going the way of most good ideas. You start off with a great idea and it has real foundation to it, and then all of a sudden the riffraff starts coming in and it all goes to heck.
Well, I would say that, except for the fact that I just got confirmation that Eli Newberg is going to come do the show.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And that's going to give me some instant cred, you know, right there. So yeah, it's going to be fun. You know, Charlie Warren's going to come on.
Oh gosh, I haven't seen Charlie in so long. You know, one of the last times I actually interacted with Charlie, I think he was having breathing or chop troubles or something. He was pretty much focused on bass and not doing any tuba. He's just such a fabulous tuba player.
Phenomenally nice man.
Yeah,
as so many in our style are. That's one, because like I said, I used to play a lot of Latin bands and big bands, and when I started getting into this style, it was shocking how nice people were. And that quite often your New Year's Eve gig would stop at midnight. Anyway.
Yeah, instead of 3 a.m. you mean.
Anyway, kid, this has been a lot of fun. I hope we get a chance to. I hope I get a chance to see you play again sometime in the near future.
Well, likewise, my friend. I am definitely looking forward to that day, as all my band members are as well. We're promoting our fate right now.
Well, you know, eventually this is all going to pass over, and we're going to be able to play for our fans again. Because a lot of our fans, we are their life. A lot of our fans are of the age to where their social structures and their lives are centered around hearing us play, hearing the bands play.
Yeah, I think it's like the doctor who sees the little boy who swallowed the quarter.
I almost forgot.
He tells his mother, "This too shall pass." Right?
Yes, but I almost forgot. I needed to mention one more person in our discussion, and that was Bob Moore. Bob's Red Mill.
Oh, yeah. You know, so I've met Bob a couple of times, and I've had the pleasure of playing over there once or twice. I believe you have as well.
Well, I was actually a Southern California band for the convention.
Okay.
The Natural Foods Convention is how I met him.
All right. Yeah, he's definitely a jazz lover, and he's a decent player, and he and my piano player, our longtime piano player John Bennett, are close, and so John has worked over at the primary factory, I guess, if you will, mill up here on a number of occasions. And Bob tried to do a few things. He had jazz in, and they did some sing-along types of things, and his birthday parties are always a great event.
Yes.
And
he likes "You're Nobody Till Somebody Loves You" is the tune he likes to sing.
Oh, serious? I didn't know that.
And when we were doing this convention at the Anaheim Convention Center for his product, he actually hired a band from San Diego. I can't remember the name of their name. Anyway, they needed a tuba player, so I live in Anaheim, so they used me for it, and I played for them for 5 years, just at that convention, one time a year, and eventually came up to me. He goes, "Dan, do you know Kid Johnson?" I said, "Actually, yeah, Kid and I know each other pretty well." So I get a chance every so often to sit in with Black Swan and those guys, and they put up with me, and so that's why I had to remember to bring him up in our conversation.
Oh no, yeah, he is. Speaking of nice people, there are just some people that are just salt of the earth, and so gentle and caring and kind, and I think that's been the secret of around a lot of his success, and why people are so loyal to him and his products and that sort of thing. And it's nice when people like that are also passionate about the style of music we play.
Well, he's a superstar in his field. This is the convention we play on the West Coast for him is a Natural Foods Convention.
Yeah.
And he hires us every morning to come in and parade with him. and we hold up signs and banners, and we have a bass drum that has the logo on it, and I have a cover for my sousaphone bell, and we pray through the Anaheim Convention Center, and you would think that Elvis was there. That place goes crazy, and people taking pictures with him, and pretty young girls wanting to dance with him while we're playing. And
oh, Dan, you're such a corporate tool.
I am, and if it means a paycheck, I'm there.
You're there.
You know. All right, kid. Well, listen, this has been fun, man.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, my friend, and thanks for doing this. And keep up the good work. And we'll find a chance to get together sometime in the future.
If you have any other recommendations from people in Oregon that I know and have crossed paths with that would like to do the show, please just tell them to drop me a line.
I will do it.
All right, you take care.
All right, best to you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all for watching Trad Jazz Today with Dan Zeilinger. Make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Videos come out every Wednesday and Friday.